like we're back up. I don't think it was my internet connection. I think it was YouTube, because my computer seemed to be doing its commands reasonably well. I rebooted and retried and everything.
See if anybody.
If anyone can see me, go ahead and let me know. I presume it's going to take a few minutes for everyone to get back on. Say it just locked on me. I'm back,
Yeah,
Truth Seeker.
we're back.
I think we are still working on it. We're going to let everyone. Okay, Winging It Tracy is back. Hot Rocks. Okay. I know I didn't get you yet. So Hot Rocks, you're in the drawing also now. Merle Jones, Truth Seeker. Yep. So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened or why. I'm going to blame it on YouTube. You know, who know? I'd say more, but if I did, then they would go ahead and kick me off YouTube. So I better not. But anyhow, so I'll just chat for a little bit here, waiting for everyone to get back. Hey, Forrest.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
Okay, yep. We had to shut everything down, reboot it twice. But anyhow, so we're just going to let everyone get back here. Let me just, we're doing a drawing tonight. This book here, it's a signed copy. And currently I've got 40 people entered in with Hot Rocks, Prescott, Arizona 40? Prospecting. Yes, 40. Yeah, as the last one that's on the list here. And I'm skipping real bad, huh? Well, that's because I'm old. It's hard to skip nowadays, okay? You ought to know that, Forrest. But anyhow, so I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. Somebody suggested the Super Bowl's on, and that may be it. Wouldn't surprise me any. I'm thinking aliens or solar flares.
Lots of reasons.
It's 2021. It's got to work hard in 2020, so it's giving it hell. What was that meme? 2020. Oh, it's horrible. 2021. Hold my beer.
Here we go.
See, I don't see any other comments there. They may be skipping really bad too. Oh,
so far it's not reading bad on this end.
Sure, pull the old man card. Damn right, man. I got a full deck of those.
His birthday is tomorrow.
Yeah, Forrest knows. But anyhow.
His birthday is tomorrow, everybody.
Everybody ain't here yet, I don't think.
They're coming, hopefully.
I say it's really slow.
Getting them back online.
So aside from having people deliver placer to you, Forrest, how's things going? Oh, are you back, Cherokee?
Is Cherokee on your list already?
Yeah, she's on the list. She showed up a little bit ago, just before everything crashed. So, anyhow.
Slowly though.
Oh, yeah. This Montana bee. I'm not exactly sure what's going on in it, and which, of course, you really need to in order to be able to do the right thing to it. So hopefully over there at Butte, they can, first of all, find out where the gold is. It's clearly not for hard rock, relatively coarse free milling gold. Not happening. Okay. The last sample I did, I got about 17% of the gold into the concentrates, according to the assays. And the assays of the concentrates were a lot higher than the gold I saw in the pan. You know, the assay was 4 ounces to the ton, but I'm looking at the pan going, I'd call that more like half an ounce to the ton.
John,
So, yeah, it ain't very
Hopefully
good.
They can help you to, you know.
Yeah, Terry, I think they're skipping before my birthday. Oh, so anyhow, give just a few more minutes for everyone to get here. But yeah, I'm really hoping that someone at Butte needs a project or whatever.
That would
get
work
on
out
that.
wonderful if they can help you. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's what their lab's for, really.
Hey,
It
Xioxio.
was, you know, set up to help miners figure out solutions to problems.
Yep. Hey, Xioxio, tentatively planning on being in Butte on the 18th, 3:30 in the afternoon.
Rob McCullough is doing a presentation there.
Yeah, he's doing a public lecture on gravity separation techniques. So we're planning on coming there then. And I'm kind of seeing what happens this week. And if they're, hey, Dan, and if they're going to do I'll see about getting some actual rock samples. With the snow and everything, it's a little hard to go through the buckets, but theoretically I should have some. Oh, that would be great, Xioxio. He says he doesn't have any classes past 11 a.m. on the 18th, so he should be able to make it too.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. So theoretically, I have exemplar rocks somewhere. I think I know where the bucket. I put the exemplars in the bags of samples, didn't I, little one?
Yes.
Okay. There's a bucket of bags sitting out there. Eagle Miner. So I can go get theoretically some actual rocks, because my standard procedure is when I take a sample, I not only crush it and split it, but I also take an exemplar rock and put it in the bag. So that should be plausible to get you some good mineral specimens before we can get back out in the field. I must admit, this is interesting weather. I mean, it's been a long time since I've had to deal with something like this, and it's going to be 30 below, you say, huh?
That's what they're line.
Yeah.
Don't start buffering again.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'll say if it just becomes untenable tonight at 9 o'clock, make a drawing, and if it won't, if I can't be live at the time because it's just not working, I'll go ahead and make a video if I have to and put it out there, and then we'll see if anyone claims it by next week. No, maybe probably wasn't me. It's probably Eva. You know. But yeah, this is I say it's interesting. The lowest I've ever been before was 26 below. That's the lowest I've ever had to deal with.
Hopefully we don't get it, but it's kind of looking like we might.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
When I was living up on the mountain there, I think the one morning it was 34 below. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That was cold enough.
Exactly. Isn't Butte at a higher elevation than Helena here?
Oh, yeah.
How much higher?
Probably 1,000 feet.
Okay. Because, yeah, I know Helena's about
Maybe not
4,000.
Yeah. They were Butte's over a mile high, I believe.
I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see here.
I could look it up on my phone.
Apparently YouTube is the problem. Let's see. Oh, you're doing it on your phone?
No, I
okay.
can.
Elevation
Put Helena versus.
of
I
Butte.
think you're right here. It's
MP.
40.
5,538 feet. So it's 1,500 feet higher. It's about 4,000 right here. And you also saw how fast it did that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my internet connection. It's
Well,
not
that's
my
good.
internet, folks.
No, it's somewhere in the YouTube
Depends
system.
on part of town, though. Still getting some buffering. No, it's I'm not on HughesNet. Forrest says he walked to school in 20 below zero, uphill both ways. Where are you at,
Well,
Terry?
if he was wearing shoes at the time, he was better off than I was.
You got 3 inches of snow since you came on. Where are you at, Terry? Oh, let's see what we got out here.
Oh, it's not snowing right
no,
now.
it was clear when I came.
It's not snowing right now. It's not going to snow again according to the Weather Channel
Well,
until after midnight.
There was some
About
weather here.
-5 right
Yeah.
now. That thermometer outside seems to,
Be pretty close.
yeah, it seems to track the Weather Channel. Nova Scotia, huh? Well, that's why you're getting snow. Hey, Goldstream,
My phone
We're-
says 5 below.
5 below. See, I told you.
No,
Not as dumb as I look.
no,
Yeah.
it's accurate. Or
Yeah.
Pretty close.
So, anyhow, we're just trying to. Still 14 degrees in Butte. So you're at
Yeah, you're on
14
the
and
warm-
we're at -5.
You're on the
What
warm
the
side
hell?
of the hill then, or something. A little farther southwest.
Forrest says, "Oh, he had no shoes and the bear took them."
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're going to need hip waders before this is over with. Anyhow, so anything you want to say at this point on that?
I guess not really. The only thing I could think as far as the difference in, like Keith was just saying a few minutes ago, splitting samples. In placer, do not split your samples. The way the gold is in the ground, there's no pattern to how gold is in that gravels and sizes of gold samples.
Yeah, the gold's way too quick, way too big for assaying. Yeah.
Well, you don't want to split your sample. If you want, you make a duplicate sample. If you're going to take a 5-gallon pail and that's your sample, take another 5-gallon pail and take a duplicate sample if you're going to set it aside for later or something. Don't split that 5-gallon to 2 and then see how much gold you have in it and think that that's a representative sample. It won't work out like it will in hard rock. Hard rock, in each of the systems in hard rock, the gold will be very similar in the sample, even within the rock. It'll have some consistency that maybe it takes time to figure that out, but it'll have consistency. In a placer, you don't have that consistency. So you don't want to split your samples.
I have a question. So how do you test your samples? What do you do? Do you pan them? Do you have a small plant?
I will run a small trommel for my tests.
Like
or
a
if we get to
gold
bulk
claimer?
sampling, yeah, I have a small gold claimer. If we get to sampling, big holes we're digging with the excavator, we'll do 10-yard samples. So we're actually running, a full-out wash plant and then condensing that down where we can run it on the table or run it on the gold cube through the gold cube and then, finalize it and get our sample, weigh our gold, dry it and weigh our gold and put it against that 10-yard sample. How much, how many grams or milligrams or, actual ounces. Sometimes, you have some nuggets where you're in the ounce,
Mhm.
you got a 10-yard sample and it had an ounce of gold in it.
Hey, certainly can.
It's not common. You're usually in grams or milligrams in most of your samples, and that's doing a 10-yard sample. So you're talking a pretty substantial amount of material, a tandem dump truck full of material for one sample.
Yeah. And I'm generally, you'd be,
see,
if
the
you're
big-
doing that, you'd be using a backhoe.
Right, or an excavator.
Yeah.
Or, well, you can use a loader. If you can
Okay.
dig in that spot, you could just dig in with a loader too, and keep ramping yourself in
Yeah.
into your position. But usually it's an excavator backhoe.
Okay.
And then the bigger the samples that you take, the more accurate the representation of the ground is, because you don't have a concentration of gold in any one spot usually. So if let's just say you dig a 1 foot by 1 foot hole, you have a representative of that 1 foot by 1 foot, but you're only going to get a couple cubic feet maybe at the most out of that sample. If you open that area up to 2 feet or 4 feet and take that representative sample, depending on how the gold is laying in there, you can get what I call a nugget effect. You can get one piece of gold that really messes up your test.
Yeah.
Which you just take that out, test the ground anyway. And if it's still economic enough, you could put the big nugget back into it and say, now it's really economic. And if you get out to 10-yard samples, now you're getting closer to a bigger representation of the area just because of the size and the bulk of the sample you're taking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why to a certain extent, if you want to get serious about placer mining, it really is a numbers game in yardage and moving, some serious dirt.
Well, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, the distinction between a prospector and a miner. A prospector is out looking for stuff.
Right, looking for a property. You're trying to find a location. You're trying to find a mine that might have something that a miner like myself or somebody else might be interested in leasing from you or buying from you, or working a deal and working with you on it.
Well, also there's a lot of people who do it just for the fun of it, but that's exactly how you can turn that hobby into an income stream.
Definitely.
Without spending a lot of money.
Yep.
If you go out there and find something while you're prospecting and it's open ground, claim it, do some sampling, and then get a hold of somebody, the equivalent of Jim here.
Right, that could come in and either be a partner or lease it or bring in a buyer to buy your claim or property. There's a lot of places you can take it. I mean, it all still goes back to somebody's got a prospectus. Somebody has to get on the ground and go find it and then start to figure out, could this be economic? And it starts with a shovel, a pick, and a gold pan. You're back to a prospector. Even as a professional miner, you're using that gold pan. You're checking, you're rechecking your tailings, you're checking what's coming off your sluice box. Sometimes you're cleaning gold. You're back to the gold pan. So it doesn't take a lot of equipment to be a prospector.
Okay. Jim, what do you think is the optimum distance between samples when placer exploring? Now, you might want to do both. The just
If you
initial exploration versus the
your
production exploration.
Your prospector way is, figure out a spot where maybe you're going to be hopefully close to bedrock. Maybe that hole is going to be, 4 feet deep, 6 feet deep. And, start shallow, and if you can, or start in old workings and go down to bedrock, going into, like, maybe they stopped at this bank. Why did they stop? If you go in and you only go in 2 feet and you realize the bedrock's coming up under that bank, well, that tells you why they quit. That's where the gold cut off. But if it'll get you 6 feet closer to the, for more depth, go down in the old workings and go in at the side of it. As far as your hole spacings are going to somewhat determine whether, if it's something you're looking at for a bigger placer, maybe you're going to be there you're going to bring in a trommel, you're going to do some bigger work, whether that's a tractor, backhoe, or going to excavators and dump trucks. Your testing, you could start out with your testing holes and your testing lines quite a bit apart for the initial testing and see what that tells you. and then refine where you may want to dig in between or trench in between to zone in on and learn more about it. But in the beginning, and it would depend on the gulch you're in, how wide. I mean, I've been on some placers that they're a half a mile wide. You've got to start somewhere, and ideally that's get up on the bench or get up on the hill somewhere above the drainage and try to envision why the drainage lays like it does, and where would the water have gone when it comes shooting out of that canyon up above you. Where would the water have gone? And that's where you want to go test. Just go look at that curve, that dog leg, maybe a flat bench. You see a bench up there that's 20 feet above where they mined, but it's flat and it stays at the same contour as the mountainside, coming down. You may want to go up and test that bench way away from the water. A lot of miners in Alaska that came up after the down to find bedrock, find the gold above bedrock, they made more money than the guys who mined the creek. Wasn't the ancient channel. The ancient channel was up here on the side hill. Okay. So it's really looking at the drainage and trying to use imagination a little bit. Where'd the water come and go to?
Okay. Chris also brought up, it depends on how much change there is. Does the ground keep changing a lot, or is it pretty consistent? That would affect your spacing. And
depth. If you get a lot of variation in depths to bedrock, you're going to want to do more holes to figure out if it's a channel or what caused the bedrock shifts, if there's a lot of difference in depths in your test holes.
Terry says he's been using 5-foot rebar to find bedrock.
That could work in a shallow environment.
I think I'd be more likely to use like a ground rod because it'll pull out easier.
Yeah, a smooth rod. Yeah, that's sharpened to a point on the end, kind of coned. Yeah, drive it down. But if you get into, you get into 3-foot granite boulders down there somewhere, that's going to be the end of, that you may think you're on bedrock, but you're not. You're still 4 or 5 feet away from bedrock if you start landing on a big, boulder pattern under there. So ideally, digging really is your best thing. And, in looking at old diaries of old miners, their thing was dig a shaft, dig a hole, dig, dig, dig. And nobody wants to do that. I don't like to do it, but I go do it because if that leads me to the gold I'm looking for, well, that's the part I got to do. Ideally, if we can come in with equipment or permit equipment in and just dig a hole with an excavator or trench, that tells us a lot in one day because we can move a lot of dirt in one day.
How much reclamation do you have to do on that? How hard?
If you permit a site, let's say you put a claim in and you permit to do some trenching or just some test holes, 50 feet apart across the drainage, and then maybe go up the drainage and put 4 more holes 50 feet apart. Basically, it's they've gotten it now to where that reclamation bond is still $10,000. But if you do a hole, set up your high banker, run your tests right back into the hole, cover the hole up and, spread the debris out. And sometimes in some cases you have to seed it and go to the next hole. If you do one hole at a time, so you really only ever have let's say one 10-foot by 10-foot hole open, they're a little bit, sometimes they'll back down the bonding and make it a little easier for you. Because you're really in exploration. You're not mining it. You're not high grading the deposit. You're strictly doing test holes. So it depends on what level, how many holes are you going to do? How much ground are you going to, mess up, and how much brush and trees, and if it's on Forest Service. BLM's a little less picky. They're a little better to deal with if you're just dealing with BLM, Bureau of Land Management here. They're not quite so bad. Originally, they handled all the mining, and somewhere like 1976, anything within the Forest Service, as far as mining, got put under the Department of Agriculture, under the U.S. Forest Service, and that really made a mess of the mining issues.
I know in Tucson, Forest Service wasn't very easy to deal with at all.
They're not easy to deal with. But you have to go build that rapport with them. You have to deal with them, unfortunately. And they were trying to change some of that because of those issues all of us miners were having. And hopefully maybe in the future some of that does change. But
Probably not in the near future.
not, at least not right now. The political environment kind of has us tied, but getting.
Terry says that in his creek, he if the rebar stops, he moves it a foot or so and tries again.
Yeah.
It usually works.
Yeah, well, yeah, it can give you at least an idea of what's down there, definitely. And if you can land on bedrock, if it's just gravels and you can land on bedrock, yeah, there you go. And if you want to start to try to map that contour though as you go up the drainage and across the drainage, you want to see, can I pick out an old channel over here, like the last drainage we were mining there. The shallowest bedrock was actually right down the middle of the drainage where the creek was, the existing, on the surface creek. The bedrock on one side went from the existing creek, dropped off, and we had about an 8-foot pattern in there before the bedrock came back up, way back into the bench. So we hit a really nice strip of gold in there. Then on the other side of the drainage, the bedrock actually went from that shallow point. It went down into the hillside and dropped off 27 feet to the deepest spot of bedrock. And we had to remove, 20 some feet of overburden off the hill itself to get to pay gravel. And then we went down, 26, 27 feet of pay gravel. So depending on where, and that isn't how the drainage looks. The drainage looks like a U, and the creek is right in the middle. The fact is the bedrock went way off back in there, and all of that got covered at some point, after glaciation or just the way that the mountain above it degraded and filled in. The bedrock was shifted way off in before we hit the lift of the bedrock back in that wall. So the deep area in the creek wasn't where the creek was. It was 75 feet away and 20 feet deeper back in the bench that nobody, if we wouldn't have been digging it and following the bedrock, that isn't where you'd have looked for gold. It was a big, huge hillside coming down.
Well, Winging It said, would a small gas auger be of any value?
Maybe. If it was just gravels that you're working with and you didn't get into big rocks, because big rocks will want to flip and tip, and that's going to be your limitation is rocks. And most of your plasters where you're really looking for gold, it's a concentration of rocks. It's no different than your sluice box. The lights and stuff will be up in the surface. They'll wash off. Basically, the drainage is acting like a sluice box or the river. It'll take the lights and stuff out of there for the most part. When you actually get to where the gold is going to be, you're going to be in cobble and rock and bigger rocks as you get deeper into that high energy channel is what you're looking for at the bottom of that drainage. In the high energy channel, the rocks can get to be 3-4 foot in diameter.
So basically, while it might be useful in some circumstances, in
Yeah.
most it's not terribly.
No, in most of it, it wouldn't be. If you were in old tailings, though, maybe where the old timers washed some tailings or something, an auger could work really well to test the tailings. And like I say, in some cases, depending on how they were actually mining and what they were using for elevation and sluice boxes, some of those old timers threw 50% of the gold right back to where it was. That's how they were so inefficient. They were using gunny sacks for carpeting in their sluice boxes. And they were using sometimes pole riffles where they were running small poles like dowels down their sluice box and making them narrower at the bottom so the big rocks would roll through the sluice box, but it would catch the nuggets. And that's all they were interested in catching. Well, in most of your placers, 60% or more of your gold will be fine gold. They weren't looking for that. They wanted the coarse, quick nuggets they could put in their poke and head for town.
Mm-hmm.
So being they washed 50, 60% right back into the drainage, that didn't bother them.
Okay, and also, if anyone has any questions about any other mining subjects, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
We've pretty much covered the original subject. We can certainly answer any more questions on that too.
The
But
reasons for doing a test hole and what you can learn from that excavation.
yeah, and that's the thing. An auger would give you, if you can dig it, it'll give you a relatively small sample that will likely show you only the finer placer gold.
Like the guys up there in the Yukon that some of you have seen on Gold Rush, some of that is gravels until they get to bedrock. There's not a lot of huge boulders until they're really close to bedrock, or they're ripping bedrock. If it's just gravels, they can use, they do a lot of drilling with augers, auger drilling equipment. Gravels, that tells them that, okay, if we bring an excavator over here and dig a hole, we're gonna see what we want to see to actually do a bulk test. So that they're using the augering systems for the organic on top, or frozen material that they have to go through, and then they can find the placer gravels to know that they're on the channel they're looking for of gravel. The accuracy of the tests isn't good, but if you do a test and there's gold in the pan when you wash it and clean it all up, well, it was successful. It was successful from the point that there's gold there. Now we can do a bulk test and find out how much gold.
It was so much easier before all the permitting.
Well, yeah, you could just go dig the hole. And on Forest Service, if you just want to dig one hole and you're going to do it manually with a pick and a shovel and that, there's not a lot they can do about it. They don't like it, but you can, if you've got a claim, if you stake it and it's your claim, you have to do $100 worth of assessment work every year anyway. You can dig a hole. They don't like it. They want you to do a plan of operations and they want to know what you're doing, or your notice of intent. They want to know everything, but honestly, they need to know nothing if you're doing it manually. And that's why we do a lot of stuff manually, is we can get something done before we got to go to the stage of waiting for them to give us a permit.
Well, and that's something else. Down in Tucson, I had some hard rock claims, and I asked them about just using an electric demolition hammer to take samples. And they said, no.
Right.
You can't do that.
Hammer. Yeah.
That's not a hand tool. That's a power tool.
Right. And there has been some court cases that were tried, and literally the judge said, if they're, like in that case, or they're using one water pump, you're setting up a sluice box or a high banker, and you're using one water pump and you're hand digging and hand shoveling into it. There has been court cases where the judge literally said they can do that. This is crazy. It's not a backhoe. It's not big equipment. It's one pump.
That would depend on your
right. It would depend on the county. Well, right. It depend on the county what judge you get to go see, I guess. But,
yeah.
The jurisdiction you're within.
Yeah, I mean,
ideally, don't end up in a kangaroo court of the Forest Service in Kansas City.
I don't think they have a Forest Service in Kansas City, do they?
No, but they go to the federal court in Kansas, just like the IRS does, or somebody else. And you end up in a kangaroo court that they already know how it's going to get ruled against you.
Do you mean you have skepticism of our
I
legal
do.
system?
I have a problem with our legal system.
Oh, man.
Oh, well.
I'm heartbroken. Heartbroken, I tell you. Oh. So, anyhow, that's a good point, too. In both hard rock and placer mining, a lot of times the plan of attack is determined more by the regulatory environment than it is about other practical considerations.
It is. I mean, you could definitely still go out there with a pan and a shovel and a, you know, like I say, even a small high banker, get in somewhere, run some material, you know, start digging and just make sure you record what you're seeing as you go down on changes, because that's what's going to lead you to finding values that are worth being there every weekend or a month in the summer, or leasing it or selling the claim to somebody else for, you know, good money.
Now, here's another point. You don't have to volunteer to the regulatory authorities that you have these records that they could then subpoena.
No, those
you
are
just
your,
don't mention that.
Those are your records.
Don't mention it so they don't know.
But
Yeah.
you know, the other thing I'll tell people, don't go out and buy a claim. Not until you do your due diligence. Do not go on the internet and buy a claim, or so-and-so's got a claim for sale. I mean, you want to do historical perspective. You want to look at it. Can I even mine it? It may be in a district that you'll never get a permit, you know, to mine it. You don't go buy a claim and think you're going to go out and find something. Go out. If that's the case, you sign a purchase agreement deal with somebody for the claim and ask for a month of that. I want to go on there. I want to do some due diligence and prove that there's some gold there or something to find before I, you know, pay for this claim.
Okay, now,
You know, that's a mistake that a lot of people have made.
okay, Jeff says some regulation says you can have a dredge of up to 15 horses. I think he's in Canuckistan, Nova Scotia or someplace.
Well, some places are dredges.
Have you thought
okay.
of making a small digger dredge? Now, I'm not sure what you mean by a digger dredge, Jeff. Do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, you literally could build a small chain operated, you know, bucket line dredge if you wanted.
I don't know. I mean, you could basically take like a
I'm assuming when he says a
ditch
digger
witch.
dredge, he's
Yeah,
talking
I mean,
about a bucket
you know,
dredge.
there's ways. I mean, it's infinite how guys have figured out how to get gold. I seen some guys operation that they went and bought one of these vacuum excavators that they use in the manholes for the power lines and telephone boxes and stuff. They had this big vacuum excavator that they actually were on the bedrock, and they would shale the bedrock, and then they had the, you know, 4-inch hose, and they're sucking it up, and that tank would hold all their, you know, material, and then they'd open the tank up and clean it out and run it through their sluice boxes. And I was like, wow, that's ingenious.
Well,
You know, a modern day, you know, vacuum excavator, because you don't wreck anything. You know, there's some ingenious people out there that have, you know, they found the gold and then figure out how you're going to mine it.
well, another thing you can do with vacuuming, I was looking there, so I'm not sure if you said this, but if you take an air compressor and make an air lance, you know, basically a pipe that's shooting the air out, and you use that to break it up for the vacuum truck. Now they use that.
Oh yeah, you can pull solids with that.
In the cities.
Oh yeah, you can.
They like to do that
2-inch
because you
rock.
can't break a pipe.
Right. That's why they do it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why they do it, because you can work around a phone line or something without touching it.
Yeah.
Fiber optics.
That can get pretty pricey.
And all of that, well, and all of that newer, that kind of technology could be used in gold mining. You know, it's just how would you use it? You gotta know the site that you're on before you want to find equipment that'll get the job done.
Yeah. Now you can also use a water jet to dig for a suction dredge.
Yeah, you could dry land dredge like that actually.
Yeah.
You just have a mud puddle you're working in and be able to use a dredge on a high banker.
Okay. Yeah. Jeff says like a ditch witch that would pick up the material and dump it into a sluice.
Yep.
Yeah. You could do that. Basically anything that digs it up will work.
Yeah, you may want to clean up the bottom of your, if you get on bedrock, you may want to go down there and hand shovel that all clean and sweep it or something. You know, run a metal, like I always tell everybody, get on that bedrock, run your metal detector once you're down there. Make sure you didn't miss some crack that has, you know, a bunch of ounces of gold or something in it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they're even looking at using high pressure water to cut bedrock.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
When you're looking at
That's
you know,
real high pressure.
many thousands of psi, you can cut inches into rock. Another one that I thought, it had nothing to do with mining, although I suppose it could if you were trying to just clean the bedrock, to take the degraded concrete off of like a bridge deck.
Yeah.
They use water pressure jets because they can only break it up if it's so weak. And so it'll tear up the degraded concrete, leaving a nice rough surface to put in a top coat.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. No, there's
Yeah.
a lot newer technologies that have never really been used in placer mining.
Yeah.
And stuff that do exist.
They were also testing, the Bureau of Mines there in United States was testing, if you drilled holes in the, for tunneling, you drill holes and then you use like an expanding head. You put this real strong rod in the hole with an expanding head, and then you just pull on it and just spall the rock out. And they were checking to see whether or not, what they're trying to do is getting anything that is as productive as explosives
without using,
or better without using explosives. Yeah.
No, there's.
Yeah, explosives just have that supersonic shock wave. It just does such a great job of fracturing the rock as it pulls the rock.
Right.
Not when it hits it, it's when it pulls it.
If you get your explosion right, it's ore ready to go to the primary crusher. If you want it in fine rock, you can pulverize it right in that explosion to be the fine rock you want to haul.
Forrest, we were looking more like for a small scale water jet they used to just loosen stuff up. Like if you were dredging and you take a tee off of your pump and then have some just to stir up the sediments and break them up.
Break up the gravels even.
Yeah.
Because you can get into cemented gravels that are, you have a hard time running a pick into it to break it up.
Oh, yeah.
A big excavator, there's not a lot that stops it, but if you're trying to hand dig that, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be pretty rough.
Yeah, it can be tough on you. That's where, and I've seen guys even use electric jackhammers and that to break some of that material up just to make it easier for them to handle. And they're not swinging that way. They're just using that vibratory, drill hammer to break that stuff up. And that's in a placer. But that gravel's compacted so hard, it's almost concrete.
Well, I've used my Hilti to help dig trenches over there in Tucson with the caliche.
Yeah. Break it up. Once you get going, it goes pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen that even on some small operations of placer where it was easier.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a pickaxe, it's easier. Just use the electric hammer, break it all up.
Yeah.
And then he can shovel it or scoop it out of there.
No, say that it's funny. At one mine I was at, just the blasting, and we were only using, I think, about 0.4 of a pound per cubic yard ANFO, and 0.4 of a pound of ANFO per cubic yard, and we were getting 60% 3/16 minus.
Wow, so it had to be soft rock then, or
it was
something.
just hugely fractured.
All right, so
yeah, it wasn't super soft, although it wasn't real tough.
No, but it already had enough fracturing to.
We were, once we got down 20, 30 feet, then there was stuff, it could be hard to rip with a single ripper on a D9, but it would still blast just fine.
Pulverize it.
Yeah, that shock wave, it compresses and then it expands it. And it's the expansion that breaks rock. Rock doesn't have any strength and tension.
Nope, it doesn't.
Yeah, it would just do it. Another thing we had fun with, it was an old mine that and we'd bust into tunnels and stuff, in the middle of your haul. There was one time somebody just knows there was a little hole about this big in the haul road. Okay. And it's like, okay, there must be something underneath there. So we took a loader and broke the edges down, dumped 2 35-ton truckloads down that hole.
Before we got coming up under the road.
Something. I don't know what it was, but it took a bit to fill it.
Wouldn't have been fun to drop a truck into.
Yeah.
It's been an exciting afternoon.
Okay, so Jeff Curry says he's used Sierra blasters in his creek.
That's a neat product. That is
Yeah.
a neat product. You know, it's fairly safe to use. You can, you can buy the new cartridges. It's all, you don't need a license to use it. That's a neat little system.
We have a gentleman, he's in Barstow, California, that's making larger charges for like a Sierra blaster,
Right.
but
I think there's 3 companies now that have the similar systems.
say he was saying that it it has like a 10 grain or 10 gram, I don't know, 10 gram I think black powder charge. He says I think legally you can make up to 40, I think it was. And so he was making bigger ones. It's like,
and y'all want them at
okay.
39. Just legal. They're just legal.
I don't know, Zeoxia, whether they think Sierra blasters are power equipment. I would not guess power equipment, but they might call it explosives. And even though it's not. So this is, again, it's going to depend on your
Jurisdiction.
the particular
would be the big one.
office that
Right.
you're dealing with.
Yeah, who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, some of the guys in charge of mining and that are great to work with. I mean, and some of these BLM guys in that they know their area, they know the area, they know a lot about it. They can even help you maybe with history or even the history of old mines. And they understand mining. They understand why you're out there doing what you're doing. And you're a miner.
It was nice
Even
when that was
as
the
a
case.
prospector, you're a miner. You know, you don't say I'm a hobbyist, because that's not true. If you want to be protected by the mining laws and the way things exist, you are a miner, because then you're protected under the U.S. mining laws, the 1876 mining law and that stuff.
Well, that's good that you've got liberal mining laws in Nova Scotia. I think they really tightened them up in British Columbia not too long ago. And I know a lot of people were kind of grumbling about that. But I'd say I just don't know. I know one thing that, and this was years, decades ago, that one of the people I worked for who was Canadian said one of the big, one of the better things about Canadian mining, only one regulatory agency. Equivalent of their MSHA handles all the regulations.
Right.
And so you don't have the building codes and the health department and all this other stuff. You just have one regulator to deal with. That's it. There are horror stories of different regulators requiring different things.
The MSHA can be not fun to deal with. Then of course Forest Service, and then BLM, and then the county. You got a water board, and you've got county commissioners, and there's a lot that goes into it to actually get to a stage that you can, come in with equipment like we do and mine.
And Goldstream says that you can barely dig a hole in British Columbia now. And Chris Georgie also brings up a point. If you're not mining or prospecting for the purpose of mining, you might be committing mineral theft legally.
That I get, that is a possibility if you're not at least posting a note, like here on a claim. Initially you need to post a location notice that you're going to claim it, and then you have 90 days to actually finish all the paperwork with the county and the Bureau of Land Management on your claim. So it can give you some time to, not only establish corners on your claim, but to maybe do a test hole just to see, is this something that we really want to put a claim on because of the cost of doing that.
Yeah, Goldstream says in British Columbia, you can't dig any deeper than 1.2 meters.
Yeah, I heard something about that, but they would let you at least dig a hole.
Jeff says, have you had any experience with having to rent water rights even for a high banker because the water filters back to the creek?
Not so much here, because the water rights here on most of these drainages were initially claimed for mining water. So unless, and that's something you definitely have to check out in the jurisdiction or area that you're in, because some of those mining water rights were transferred to agricultural. And in a lot of cases, they never were. The agricultural guys downstream are using them for agricultural, but they're actually mining water rights that exist on the drainage yet. And Montana here has pretty good records on the drainages and what's available. And if you were to stake a claim that you have water right, to it, at least up to a certain amount.
In Arizona,
with placer mining,
yeah.
like here, for the most part, you're using the water for a few minutes, and then it's going through a settling pond or multiple ponds or some kind of filtration, and it's going back into the existing, ecological system. So you really, if there's any loss, it would be evaporation, which is like only a small percentage of the water. And I've had ranchers even come up because they know we're on a drainage mining and they're worried about their water. And when they actually see the system of what we do with the water, they're like, well, you're really not using water. And I'm like, well, technically, yes, we are. We're using, 800 gallons a minute or something, but we're putting it right back into the system within a matter of a few minutes. So we're really just kind of borrowing it.
Can I hear something that doesn't sound good? Forrest Anderson says Idaho just came out with a new Idaho EPA commission to regulate small mining. What could possibly go wrong? Jeff Bybee says in Idaho, 4 years ago, all water within 250 feet of the surface is called surface water. So you could dig a well 200 feet and it's called surface water. Wow.
So you could dig a hole and use the hole to sump water to pump. And we do that in some drainages. We don't pull from active water. We'll dig our test hole, and if that hole fills with water, there's our water source to run our high banker for some more tests, or a small wash plant. Our water is being sourced just literally from the saturation of the valley. So we're not pulling live water from a stream, because they don't like that, actually. They'd rather you do an outside source.
Okay, and I remember this now that Forrest brought it up. When you're dredging in Idaho, you have to have a water permit. Terry says that we sometimes have a tree hugger come by and tell us it's illegal to pen or sluice in the river. I take out my mining regs and read them the law. It pisses them right off. Yay! Go, Terry.
Good for you for standing up, though, because this is what we need, is educating people as to how this is supposed to work, not how they think it should work.
Yeah.
As miners, we have some really interesting rights that exist, and it's a matter of, utilizing those rights, just like your weapon rights or whatever. You need to use those and to, show that I'm using my right.
Now, Zioxio says, I've been out sapphire panning in the mountains and had the Forest Service fly over taking pictures of our operation and sent us a cease and desist letter.
I'm sure.
And he said, we fought them and won. See, that's the problem, is a lot of it is through intimidation.
The geologist here for the Forest Service, I had to school him one day, and I finally just asked him to get in this truck and go find somebody else to play with, because we were getting nowhere, and he did not understand the mining law. He didn't understand that a lot of their regulations are for visitors or somebody just out having fun. And if you own a claim in there and you own the mineral rights, you are actually considered a landowner, even though you can't do whatever you want on the surface of that ground. Those minerals in there are yours.
A stakeholder, they like to call it.
Yeah, but literally the way the judges have ruled on that is a stakeholder is still basically the same as a landowner.
Uh-huh.
So if you own the grazing rights, or you own the mineral rights, or you own the timber rights, you have a right to those things. And they keep coming up with these, I like to call them hula hoops, because they keep throwing them at you. And they're trying to get you to beg and play into their contract, because they want to get you in a contract. That's really what that whole plan of operations is, to get you to enter into their contract so that they can change the rules anytime they want. And that's not what your rights say. Your rights have determinal things that say you can do this, and you can do this. And they don't want you to realize what your rights are. And in most cases, they're not even educated in what your rights are. You have to educate them in what your rights are.
Well, don't forget that's a big part of activism. Is there are communities online that actively coach people in how to get into government jobs.
Well, yeah, because they can rule by regulation, and that's not a law. That's their regulation, and in most cases, that's the regulation they have to follow, not you. But they'll convince you that, oh, you got to do this and this and this, and it's like, whoa, back up, wait a minute. I have a right to do this, and I have a right to do. Then there's some good rights, and there's a lot of it that's been, handled in courts where the judge ruled for the minor or for the person who held rights, and as they should. So don't let them, play that game of regulation, because those are not laws. Those are things that they dream up in their office to keep you and I from being out on our public lands and utilizing that.
Their fevered opium dreams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you for that. That's the truth.
Opium, but we should turn it into copium.
Yeah, opium. No, and always remember,
Chris would like you to contact him by phone sometime.
Okay. Always remember, you're representing other minors too, so you don't want to get in crazy fights with them. But because we're all representing each other as minors in that out in the field, so you have to use your brain. That's what you have one for. Think about what you're going to say, and if nothing else, at least do some homework so you understand what your rights are.
Jimmy, yes, we're ready for the cold weather. We're in a nice warm spot. It's been down to 10 below so far, no problems. I don't think I'll try starting the truck when it's much colder than that. But aside from that, everything's fine. We're snug and warm and everything. So thank you very much for your concern. We're doing great. Let's see. But Jim, most of them don't care about what's in the law. It's all about what they think. Yes, we've noticed that on larger scale lately too, huh?
That is, but even like with me, once I had enough mining claims that I was working on within a given area, they realize I am not going away. And, at first they want to intimidate you because they can get you to pack up and go home. And that's not why I'm there. I'm not packing up. I'm looking. I'm going to hunt. I'm going to go, on my quests. And when they realize that I am not going to go away, well, then they keep trying tactics, but usually I'm right there and I'm like, no, that is not what the law says or whatever. And then it's like, blah. And it's like, go play with somebody else.
Does anyone know? Let's suppose that you had a regulator out there that says, you got to do this. And you said, no, I don't. I'm not going to. They said, well, if you don't, I'm going to arrest you.
Oh, they threatened me. I was using my four-wheeler going up to one of my hard rock claims and using the old road, which was actually a mining road. It wasn't a logging road. It was a mine road that was put in for a mine. And they threatened me with a $5,000 fine for using my four-wheeler. And I cleaned the road up too. Mm-hmm. I fixed a few spots and fixed some washouts and fixed some just by hand. But they were just over the top. They're going to just nail me to the wall. And I'm like, according to the mining law, I have a right to maintain a trail. I can actually use it as part of my assessment work. I have a right to access. I have these rights. And they went, oh. And that was the last I heard from them on that subject. But they were going to write me a $5,000 fine because I did what I did.
Well,
And I'm like, no, I have a right to go there. I have a right to get access to my claim.
wow. Zeoxio says a friend of mine did get arrested by Bozeman for picking up a rock in a parking lot. Was that like a Forest Service parking lot or something, or what, Zeoxio? He had to pay a $500 fine.
I would have delivered it back to him, airmail, right straight back at him.
We have to be careful. Have to be careful. Now, you know, we're sedition. Okay.
No, you know,
That's
get
no,
a
no,
copy.
Bear.
You know, get a copy of the mining law and look at it, and then also you can go to. There's some law books on mining law also, and I think actually even the Bureau of Mines you can get some of those, and it's interesting to read through some of the cases that have been brought against mining companies or with mining companies against Forest Service or BLM or other government intrusion. And it's amazing how many times that the judges do rule for the miner. The miner's right. You have a right. That those are your minerals. If you have that claim, it's all legal, it's staked, everything is correct. You own that.
Now, Chris says the answer is if you insist on persisting and knowingly violating my rights, I reserve the right to sue you personally.
Well, you
Yeah,
can
you
do
can.
that.
Yeah.
Chris,
Yes, you can.
Chris, I'll get a hold of you
You can
afterwards
sue.
because I have actually a sheet of paper that there's a federal law that even a police officer that they legally have to give you all the information that they're trying to take from you, but you also have a reason. You also have a right, and it's passed by Congress. You have a right to basically ask that officer all the same questions and have him fill out a sheet with his badge number and his personal information. And if he violates any of your rights, he can be held personally responsible. Well, he's going to have a hard time explaining that to his wife why he can't make the house payment next month. You know, I mean, whatever they're throwing at you, there's a counter for that.
Chris suggests we keep the details offline.
Probably.
Yeah, Terry says in Nova Scotia they have same type of people, newbies to salmon fishing, arriving on the river in their color-coordinated fishing gear. I love that. And start telling us how we're supposed to fish for Atlantic salmon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand you cannot even pan the street gutters in Butte because all mining rights have been claimed, says Jeff.
That's probably true. I know that back in history, people would punch a shallow well into the hill and they'd get gold coming up, so they put little filter screens on their water tap in the kitchen to catch the gold that was coming up from the water at one point.
Yeah, I've seen it, Forrest. You're right. Dan Holman wants a copy of that paper also. I'm not sure. Dan, do you have a channel or something? I mean, I don't know what the best way to communicate.
If he emailed to you.
Well, yeah. In the United States, qualified immunity is a legal principle that grants government officials performing discretionary functions immunity from civil suits, unless the plaintiff shows the official violated clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. Okay, yeah, sure, Chris. Have Dan get in touch with me, and
you
I can forward it.
You can sue a public official individually if they cause you material harm under color of authority.
Right.
Yeah.
But I actually have that sheet in my truck I carry just for dealing with some of these guys. It's like, here, fill this out. And they look at you like, well, I don't have to do that. I'm like, yep, here's the law and here's the code and section and here's the whole thing. And it is a law. They have to. And if they don't want to, then we're done. We're done talking.
Jerry says it got so bad that most of us quit the Salmon Association.
Well, that's part of it, Terry, with even the miners have quit because they go up and they start to play a little bit and they get harassed. And, unfortunately, some of them are, well, I'm just doing it as a hobby. Well, unfortunately, actually, you have more rights under the mining law as a miner, and you're representing other miners. So if that's your answer, it's not good for the rest of us either. you know, we need, in a way, we need to stick together, but that's not so easy to
There's
do. But
40 in there.
it, you know, it has and what rights you do have.
There's
Well-
40 in there. Is that correct, Bear?
Yeah, I'm up to 40 now. Let's see. I've gotten into arguments with Forest Service rangers for collecting agate, which doesn't count as petrified wood.
No, that would be sand and gravel. That's a different permit.
That's one
Yeah.
thing I have to find out about Montana. In Arizona, there are a couple of rock hounding parks, state parks, that are
Okay.
specifically for rock hounding.
There's some gold panning areas here too that are state sanctioned. You know, it's, and then there's clubs who have claims if you just want to go out. And a lot of times they've already got a hole dug.
Well, I want to look for gemstones. I want to look for like
Some sapphires.
Okay, everybody, here's my email address. I'll be willing to be a go-between here. So go ahead and write that down. I'm afraid that might get my channel banned for us. Here we go. So there's my email. Anyone wants to email me to ask for information some of the other people have, I'll contact them and forward it on, et cetera, et cetera. And at this point in time, you're right, Chris. It's very interesting times. But okay, so let's see. I'm not sure why, but tonight seems to be lasting a long time to me. Usually it seems to just zip on by, but no, I was fabricating for 2 days.
You gonna tell them about your new thing?
Oh, I'll show it to them when I can. Yeah, I've been working on the hoisting equipment for what we'll theoretically be using at Montana B in the not too distant future. We'll see. See how it works out and everything. 20,000 miles of roads closed by the Forest Service in Montana since 1995.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
yeah, that's an issue. That's one we were working on and starting to actually get somewhere with it. And then, of course, we had the turnover in the Department of Interior. And that kind of stuck us a little bit.
We'll see what
But
happens.
I think in the near future, some of that is going to get changed just because we need access to, you know, minerals and stuff in this country. We need to get mining back.
Well, let's say it's I don't know. Eva, you want to give a quick synopsis on what's going on with gold and silver supply, etc.?
Sure, I can do that for you.
Recently, the Forest Service is trying to reduce the number of closed miles by closing only the first and last mile and claiming the middle isn't closed.
Well, then find a new way to get to the middle.
Yeah, you can't build a new road either.
Well,
But yeah, the Treasure Goblin, that's a new name. Oh, let me write you
put him
down
on
so
the
you're in
list.
with the.
You got to be on the list for the
Gotta
book.
be on the list for the Treasure
Okay.
Goblin.
He's got a number.
Okay,
Number
we're doing a drawing here in about a half an hour, so. Yeah, that's pretty much it, Aries. They seem to have forgotten who they're supposed to work for, but that seems to be rather endemic right now. So we'll see.
Well, that was one of the miners I leased a property from was telling me in the old days, because he was a hard rock miner for his whole life. And he was telling me, well, they used to help you. If you found something or whatever, they'd do everything they could to help you develop your mine.
Yeah.
And, once we got to this environmental issues, late 70s, into the 80s, it really changed in the 80s. When mining kind of died out, they took all this power upon themselves. And unfortunately, now we're dealing with it. But
Yeah.
he said they used to help you.
Little one, what's the update on precious metals?
Okay, I'm coming over.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, I'll just let you get right in here.
Well, silver is still holding at around 2,600. I haven't checked on gold because, sorry guys, I'm not interested in gold. It's just a thing with me.
2,600.
No,
$26.
Okay, thank you.
26.85, up very slightly from yesterday. Silver futures are slowly rising, and the paper silver market. Some interesting things are going on in the news because there's been a concerted push since the GameStop incursion by Reddit into the stock market. There's been a concerted push on a large number of blogs to completely debunk the idea that there's any manipulation that could be effective of the silver and gold markets, including the issue of how much paper silver and gold there is compared to actual physical silver and gold, both above ground and in the ground. At the same time, the conspiracy theorists and a few reasonable people who understand mathematics are just shaking their heads and saying, okay, now we have a disinformation campaign going on. On the websites that sell physical silver, most of the websites are still reporting there will be delays in shipping, some of them up to 2 weeks. Some of them are still reporting a lot of the more issues out of stock. Premiums around the country are holding anywhere from 20 to 35% at the moment. And that's things that I heard from other people, things that I looked up online, a few places I called. So premiums are ridiculously high. Now on the physical websites online, I believe it's JB Bullion. APMEX still has junk silver at decent, though not spectacular prices, and their premium is not too bad at the moment. COMEX is still reporting delays in delivery, but they still have some junk silver. Some sites are showing lower premiums on silver rounds, just, stamped silver badges and other odd things than they are on junk silver and coins. But there is a serious supply squeeze. And there's quite a spread between the premium when you're purchasing and the price you sell it to them at. Most of the websites I have looked at and people I've talked to said that stores are currently buying at between 20 and 22 an ounce. And they're currently selling at spot price plus anywhere from a 25 to 35% premium. So they're selling, there's about a $10 spread going on in there, a $10 or $15 spread. And part of that is because for whatever reason, after all the big names are saying that physical market manipulation is impossible and paper market manipulation is absolutely not happening. And
stuff selling around
banks and governments obviously are not manipulating the price, but for whatever reason, silver is just really hard to get right now. So I would definitely recommend getting it because the price has been trending up slowly and very predictably for about the last decade. And it's beginning to get on an acceleration curve. So that is despite whether there is manipulation or not. I think all of us know that there is manipulation in everything: stocks, real estate, inflation, etc. So to say that there is not manipulation in the precious metals market would be pretty ridiculous. The question is whether that manipulation will stay in control. Now, I saw a very interesting article on a website called coronacircus.com, I believe it is. But it's Corona Circus. And it addresses the coming financial collapse, and it is definitely well worth reading, along with much of the other information on that website, because this dude calls himself Icaros, and I'm sure a lot of people would call him a conspiracy theorist. I mean, an absolute tinfoil hatter. Well, his tinfoil hat is definitely in fashion and definitely in forward fashion. So he is well worth reading if you want to look up that website. But if you can get your hands on physical silver, get it. And if these guys know how to mine it, I'd love to know, because in the ground, I mean, the conservative ratio is considered 10-1, 13-1 is the average ratio of silver to gold. So it's well worth, when you're looking at potential mining claims, if there's a way to process, refine, or mine silver, it would be well worth looking for BLM claims, Forest Service claims, etc., that have silver, because everybody is looking for gold. And all of those shysters online and scammers online are selling gold claims, are selling the dream of gold. Well, if you can get silver, then it's worth looking into. I mean, as much as I love these guys and I love their practice on gold, we really need to take a look at silver too.
Well, the problem with silver is a lot harder to extract.
Well, you can talk
sufficient
about how
quantities.
hard it is.
It's usually a secondary.
I mean, like
So
at
look-
Montana B, there's half the silver that there is gold.
Well, and I've
So-
looked at some mines too that had places where they hit 40 to 60 ounces per ton of silver, but it was pockets. And their main issue they were hunting is gold, so they weren't even looking for the silver. A lot of times your silver is one of the secondary things you're taking out of your ore. You're getting your gold out as your number one, and then if there's enough molybdenum, silver, maybe rhodium, copper, of course, if it could be a copper gold mine, lead, zinc, tin, iron sometimes. I mean, all of those are secondary minerals that can be taken out of the ore that make the ore that much more valuable. So it's not just the gold in a hard rock you're going after. You're going after everything in that rock that you can take out of it economically to make that mine, thousands of dollars per ton. You're looking for good ore.
When looking at the ore body on one of my claims, on the USGS map, it shows the ore body as a red line. On that line, there is a short red arrow with a 50 on it. What is that? The ore body is a red line, not usually on a USGS map.
If you put it up to a compass, is it a compass direction 50 degrees to something else?
I wouldn't think so. Let's
I would
see.
think a red line. And,
What does Chris think?
I don't know. He hasn't said yet. I'm still trying to figure out who I
who's
got
all
here.
on the list.
Yeah.
I mean, without a key to the map or a reason that they did that, it's hard to say. I mean, it could be somebody's note that meant something to them, and it might not mean anything to anybody else.
Well, if it's on a USGS
Yeah,
map,
well,
it
I would
does.
think it has some bearing or something to it.
Dip angle?
Possibly, yeah, 50 degrees on the dip.
Could be.
Yeah, that's possible. That'd be a good guess.
Okay.
Huh.
Know what the question is here. Yeah, if it's when you say it's an arrow, is it an arrow or is it a V? If it's just a V, then it would be a decline. A V with a line looks kind of like a Y. That would be a decline. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what 50 would be. I would think it's an angle or something.
It could be a 50-degree dip.
That would make sense. That dip angle in the vein or 50 feet. Does the added only go in 50 feet?
Well, even then, they usually didn't put that on the maps.
I know, but it's.
Yeah. I don't know. Are you sure it's a USGS map?
That'd be a good question too.
Let's see. 15 minutes to the drawing, everybody. The latest two people were Alan Gilman and Patrick Jones. There's also Levi Michael and David Villa are now in the drawing too.
Okay, so you need 2 more numbers?
I'm up to 46 now, little one.
Okay,
That's
then you
cool.
need, hold on, I gotta get.
That's good. Thanks everybody for being here today.
Yeah, that's right. He said it could be-
suffering through the.
Chris was saying it might be a geologic map as opposed to a USGS topo map. Yeah. Oxio says, I'm just here for the stimulating conversation, not the cute chick lounging on the bed in the back. Let's see. Yeah, everyone that, anyone that's watching, if you just put a comment in saying you're here so I can write them down, then that's why that's how I'm keeping track. Right now we got 46 people that are in the drawing. And then we'll draw at 9 o'clock. And if whoever it is, could you get that thing there with my email?
Yep.
And if you aren't there, raise your hand. Yeah. If you're not here when I draw your name, if you look on the video, then you can just go ahead and let me know through comments. This is what we're drawing for. It's an autographed copy. When I was picking this up at the Bureau of Mines, the guy was in there looking for information, and so it's an autographed copy of a very good book on evaluating placer deposits. So anyhow, that's what we're doing tonight. I just thought it would be kind of something interesting to do. I was at Butte getting information, and now we got somebody just called John.
Okay, so
John's
another
there.
one?
Got another one, John. Okay, John's in there too. So let's say it just was a coincidence he showed up. So Eva said, "Hey, get him to sign it." Smoking is putting on his lucky hat.
Good for you, smoking.
And I call it my Bible. I carry it in my backpack. I got multiple copies of it. I've read through it, I don't know how many times, because there's always information in there that you go back and think, well, man, he said something about that. And it's got calculations for yardages and rock and gravel and slope. It's amazing what he's got in that book. And whoever gets it is going to absolutely love it. And I recommend anybody placer mining or even going hunting, metal detecting or whatever. It tells you a lot about how historic mining, when you're looking at the rock piles in a drainage or whatever, you get the idea of how they mined it and maybe why they mined it the way they did. And he's got all different, the reference material in there is just amazing. And some of it was California, some of it was Montana, some of it was Idaho, some of it was Washington. There's some reference to some stuff in Alaska. It really does play into the, the major placers of the country.
Yes, Terry, it can be purchased. The Montana Bureau of Mines publications. It is special publication 115. And currently it's $25.
So this is a valuable prize.
So
it's a valuable bunch of knowledge. It really is. And after all these years, there's parts in there that I still go back to and reference. And the graphs, and he's got a lot of stuff in there on the calculation of your yardage versus your gold, all the way from minor milligrams, all the way into ounces, and then your yardage. And the calculations are already made for you. So if you can weigh your gold, you can go to that and say, okay, that was a 20-yard sample. There's your number. So you don't even need the calculator with you. It's already in there. It's already calculated, and the conversion tables are there.
Okay, go ahead and keep talking. I'm gonna. He just sent that picture.
It's got different placer techniques that have been used throughout the years, from the rocker boxes to the sluice boxes, and some scientific knowledge in there. It's got all of the sampling things that we've went over the last two, tonight and then last Sunday. All of this is in here with even a lot more detail than what I was able to pick. Something that's easily understandable to get you to understand how to write it into your book, how to make notes. And this book will give you that in references to a lot of other material. It's got reserve calculations, so once you've done your test holes and you want to start to calculate reserves, to literally say we have a mine, that information for those calculations for going from banked cubic yards to loose cubic yards, and then how to adjust your gold accordingly, so you can literally calculate that this 10-acre piece of land is worth X amount of money based on your reserve values. The information in here is unbelievable, all the way from hydraulicking to modern day wash plant stuff. And it gives you a lot of geology that you should understand even as a hobbyist type person. There's enough geology in there to really help you point out and look at things that you've probably walked over gold multiple times and didn't realize what it is you were looking at. And the more you can understand the area and understand some geology, you're refining that, you're getting closer to being able to put some gold in your pocket.
Okay. Levi Michaels says, did anyone have a rough idea how many cubic yards of quartz ore weighs with 1 ounce of gold? Well, the 1 ounce of gold in a yard is not going to make a lot of difference. I know it can vary depending on composition. Is 2,800 pounds a bad average number to plug? If it's quartz in place, like a quartz vein, you'd be more like 4,500 pounds per cubic yard.
I would agree with that.
It's
going to be quite a bit more.
Yeah.
You can do specific gravity like a rock. You can float it in water, look at displacement. It'll tell you that, you can calculate the weights. But,
okay.
And those calculations are in that book. That book has got so much information. That's kind of why I call it my field Bible. You got to have it.
Total of 47 so far, little one.
That's really neat.
Okay, so it's 8:55, so we'll do a little bit of prep for the thing here. Anyone who's watching that doesn't know, we're going to do a drawing in just a couple of minutes. I've been taking a list of everyone who commented today. And so I'm going to read out the names. If you don't hear your name, you need to comment real quick so you can get on the list. And then I'm going to draw, and if whoever it is who isn't watching right now, they'll have until next week to figure it out and get a hold of me. If not, we'll just put the book up next week. Okay. So, Vendetta Prospecting, Christy Robertson, Andy and Amy, Mr. Lodak, Earl Jones, Forrest Anderson, Dan Holman, Terry Curry, James Wilson, Winging It Tracy, Joseph Bieberly, William Hanson, Stephen B., Lincoln Stovall, Zioxio, James Wilson, Robert MacGyver, Donald Covington, Javier Cabrera, Jeremy P., Ray Solomon, Secret Squirrel, Truth Seeker, Joseph Bieberly, Mike Zuni, Kevin Old, Jay Corby, Jeff Bybee, Canadian Gold Prospector, Goldstream Mining, Gold Panner, Nathan Garvins, Jeremy, just says Jeremy. Maybe there's something I'm supposed to put there, but I didn't. Pokeface, Gold Miner 49er, Mark Mitchell, Cherokee, Sonny OC, Jimmy Robertson, Hot Rocks Prescott, Arizona Prospector, Treasure Goblin, Smokin' Jokin', David Villa, Levi Michael, Alan Gilman, Patrick Jones, and John. Now, I don't know how someone got a name like John
You
and
have,
got away with it.
you had Vila, there was a name that come up.
There's David
somewhere.
Villa.
And they already went past.
Benjamin
Aries
Volker.
458. Did you have Aries 458?
Did I have Aries in there? Should have. I know I saw him, but
To answer your question, Jimmy, no, I don't do just patented claims. They tend to be easier to permit and do because normally the landowner has the mineral rights and usually has mining water rights. So it makes it quite a bit quicker to get in on patented ground in, within a season and be doing some test holes and get into mining. So I do look for patented claims and look for opportunities that I can lease it or do some kind of deal with the landowner, the claim owner. But no, I do have some Forest Service claims. I've had some BLM claims in the past that I've done stuff with or sold.
bring the numbers over here, little one.
Depending on what I'm doing. Right now, I'm actually working on a copper project that's copper,
And
gold,
we
and
need
silver,
49.
hard rock operation.
49?
That we're
49.
doing
We were
the testing and
47.
trying to permit
I
for
know.
trenching and some possible future drilling right now. And I'm also been out looking for some placer, meeting with some landowners and stuff, trying
Okay.
to line up another big project for the next few years.
Okay, Aries, I got you on the list here, and Benjamin Volker, I got you on the list here.
We have 49 numbers in a bowl.
Okay, so there's 49 numbers in a bowl, and I think the appropriate way is you have the pretty lady
Yes,
draw. So
ever draw a
stir it
number.
up. Here, I'll stir it. That way she can't place them in there. Oops. There's a couple of
Don't
them.
be doing that.
Man, I stirred it up
Don't
too
throw
much.
anybody out.
It's just crazy.
Somebody asked about putting the name of that book and stuff online. It was on the video last week in the comments and that, and a bunch of information
There is
about
your
it.
number.
Drum
Open
roll,
it in
please.
camera range.
It's number 37. So 37, you win.
Show the number. You have to
Let's
show
see,
the
I'm
number
working
to the
on it.
camera.
Now he's going to tell you who that is.
Believe it or not, it's Cherokee. And Cherokee, there you are.
Yeah.
And
Number
hold the
37.
up so they can see the number tag.
It is. That's who it is.
So you won it, Cherokee. Sweet. Yeah. And for the rest of you losers out there, this is a good book. Montana Bureau of Mines, special publication 115. And I would suggest if you're looking for stuff, just look and see all the stuff they have. Because I was seeing stuff on zinc mines and cyanide leaching kinetics and things like that. So it'd be a good place to look over for any kind of mining
They're
stuff.
fairly cheap.
Terry,
And they're cheap, yeah.
to answer your question, Terry, a eureka moment, I don't know. The whole process is a learning process, which I find absolutely fun. I love what I do. You know, I'm lucky that I love what I do, and I've been successful at it. And yes, there's down times. I mean, it's like anything else. There's times that are really good, and then you get in some ground where you're not making more than enough to pay for the diesel fuel for something. Yeah, it gets real unlucky in a way. But I think that as you go through the process and you learn how to walk onto a piece of property and start to envision where you would dig that test hole and where you would look for gold, and then you do find it, you become your confidence level goes from, low to high, and it's a lot of fun. You just go, wow, okay, it's real. What else we got for questions there? A recall. They want a recall.
Hey, wait a minute. We didn't use Dominion here. We used paper
Yeah.
ballots.
No
We used
Dominion.
paper
Yeah, it was all
ballots.
paper. It was all right up front.
Give me a call. I got a book to send to you. Take care. After 8 in the morning tomorrow will be fine. Bye-bye.
They want
A lot of congratulations on their Cherokee for that.
Well,
Everybody's happy that you.
I just called her phone. She didn't answer. I presume she's probably asleep right now. So
Maybe.
I say she'll call me back tomorrow. And she's got my number too. There was some stuff. She had some samples and stuff we dealt with. So we have each other's phone number, huh? It was Ray.
Hey, we use paper
Don't
ballots.
mention the 4-letter name. They may shut down my
We use
my channel
paper
there.
ballots, and I drew it on camera. It's not my fault. Bear did not hold up the number where you can see it immediately because he's never done this before.
Okay. Zeoxio was talking about the cool publication called Pegmatite Mineral Deposits in Montana. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you want that one, little one.
I've never looked at that one. I probably should,
Yeah, I want that
because I probably walked over $1 million worth of those.
You know what
too, and not
pegmatite
even
is,
knew it.
right?
I mean,
Kind of minerals that have
we're in the
crystals.
batholith here,
Yeah.
which is,
I want it.
granted intrusive, intrusive and extrusive coming in
I
here.
want it.
And I'm sure there's lots of pegmatite areas. It's not what I'm looking for, so.
Well, that's what I'm looking for.
Right,
Yeah,
and
so you don't want-
the thing is as a prospector, you really probably should know this stuff. You delve into a little of all of it, just so if something jumps out at you when you're wandering around, it might be worth something, spending a little time to investigate, go over there and wander around a little bit.
If nothing else, pegmatites are cool because they got lots of big crystals.
Well, yeah, you get like that crystal Zeoxio showed you the other day. I mean, wow, man, you'd feel pretty good about finding that or digging that up.
Oh, I wouldn't. You know why? Because even would have me dig it up and carry it home. Hernia
You
City.
You wouldn't because I would not let you sell it. That's why you wouldn't want to dig one up, because I wouldn't let you sell it.
No, that's fine. But every time we move,
Zeoxio,
have to pack it.
over here, I'm sure we have the same thing with the batholith intrusion, here. And I just don't, that's not, I'm looking for the gold, and mainly that's been my focus. I've had, some garnets in my sluice box, and I never actually found any sapphires in the drainages I've been in, but I know a lot of guys who do get, some really nice sapphires sometimes. And, there is other things here to look for. I've always looked for diamonds. I haven't found any. But there has been guys here that have even found diamonds that probably came, from some kind of, intrusive mineralization that was there or is within the area of the drainage. So yes, there's a lot of things to be paying attention for the farther into this that you get. And a lot of the mineralization, isn't so different if you go somewhere else. It may not look exactly the same as it does like right here, but you can take your knowledge and be able to apply it, in Nevada or in Arizona or New Mexico or Colorado, you can take that knowledge as you gain it and take it somewhere else.
Well, I don't know about young love. Let's see.
He's too old for young love. It's his birthday tomorrow.
I think I was 50 when I met you, wasn't I?
Yeah,
I think it was 50, yeah.
you were 50.
Oh, thank you, Benjamin. Yeah, we try and make stuff even when we're not doing a serious how-to video, but I thought a lot of people would enjoy that. The Ringing Rocks was pretty cool too. I was really surprised at how well Eva was handled to climb over the boulders there. She hadn't done anything like that since she was a kid, so that's great. So Terry says worn out, so I guess that means he's worn out. I'm getting pretty tired myself. Lincoln, you're welcome. We try, David.
Say happy birthday to him, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh
Keith's
no,
birthday.
she told. Yes, I'm 65 tomorrow, folks.
Yeah, it goes down in history. It's the day he officially becomes an old fart.
Yeah, it was really weird, the Ringing Rocks thing. The truck, I'm really happy with the time. I have chains for it if needed, which why I wasn't too worried about it. But I mean, even around town here, I am driving in 4-wheel drive because it's just hard packed powder. All the roads are, and it just helps with the braking, acceleration. Well, if I tried to push things a little bit, so I was coming out over by Sportsman's Warehouse on that road that runs north, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I was in a little bit of a hurry because there was a guy coming and everything. And so when I came out, it did spin on
Push
me just a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Front end drags
Yeah.
just a little bit.
You didn't believe the Ringing Rocks? Well, even the road said Ringing Rocks.
Why didn't you
It's
believe the
real.
Ringing
It's
Rocks?
it's an oddity in a geologic formation.
Yeah, they do sound like bells. It's
Yeah,
really
they ring.
odd.
Well,
Thank
as
you
I
for all the
said,
happy birthday wishes, everybody.
As I said, I don't believe that they are naturally lithophonic. I believe it's an artifact of the placement when they landed where they did.
I have never found any fossils while mining. I have found some fossils when looking for fossils, but not
Me
mining.
either. No fossils.
In gold mining,
Chinese artifacts, things like that, occasionally, but where they've worked in some of these places. But lots of tin cans from the old miners in the 30s and 20s.
no Zeoxio, we went right to the Ringing Rocks and back. I mean, we went from Helena to Butte, did stuff there. Some student took us around Montana Tech and everything, and then we went to the Ringing Rocks and we had to get back to Helena. So no, didn't even know about a mine. Maybe our local guide forgot to tell us. Found a mule shoe in a mine. Now, the best find I ever found in a mine, it was in the old Senator's mine near Yuma, Arizona, right next to Senator's Wash, which now has Senator's Wash Dam and regulating reservoir. But the guy who owned the mine wanted us to take a look at it. And we went, down to the bottom there. Just nobody been in a long time. And there was the front page paper, this the front and back pages and everything, of the special 98 New York Times special Spanish American War edition.
Oh, cool. That'd be worth framing and putting on the wall.
Well, we carefully preserved it and gave it to the mine owner.
owner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He
What
thought
a
it was
neat
really cool.
Oh yeah. What a neat artifact.
Oh
It
yeah.
kind of dates when somebody was down there working. You know.
Oh, Mr. Lodak. That's hard. Could you, Jim, right between the shoulder blades, see anything there?
No.
A knife sticking out,
No.
maybe?
No, did he get you?
A fossil. Finding a fossil is a
Finding a
paradox.
fossil. Finding a fossil.
Let's see. Yeah, it was pretty cool, Chris. That's the best find I've ever found. We have a spot in Nova Scotia. By the way, I've been to Nova Scotia and the Bay of Fundy. It's pretty cool. No, that's great, Mr. Lodak. That was a good one. Around here, harassment will not be reported, but it will be graded. Oh,
I would grade that a B+.
I should have
Grade
saved
that.
that paper Tom gave me. Oh,
Great.
me and Tom, the guy that you used to see in the background when we were doing the videos from Tucson there, he and I give each other crap all the time, etc., you know. And I needed some medicine up here from down there. So he shipped it up. When I opened it up, there was my medicine and there was a piece of paper with one of these on it. And it's like, sweet.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for thinking of me.
I'd give you at least a B+, Lodak. That was pretty
I'd
good.
say a B+. Perilously close to an A-.
Comments from the lady laying on the bed. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they were. Yeah, she's pretty good at those. She's kind of like a sniper. She waits for her time and then zings it in. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't
Listen.
try and sneak up on her. Basically. Ooh, Forrest wants you to get me a 6-pack of Geritol and a cane. Ooh, man.
Not yet, right?
Oh, Chris says he even eats peanuts and a rubber band gun. That would be pretty good.
Well, I have a wrist rocket somewhere.
That would be a little harsh.
Yeah, that might hurt.
Lars, you missed the drawing.
Haven't you ever heard Love Hurts?
You're finally here, and now you missed the drawing. Well, we'll see. If Cherokee doesn't want the book, it may be up again next week, but we'll see. We know I know who it is. I called her up and she didn't answer her phone, so I guess she's sleeping. But she's got until next week to claim it.
And we will look into doing other giveaways.
Yeah. So we shall see what it is. It's this one here. And it's a really good book on placer exploration and evaluation. The Montana Bureau of Mines Special Publication 115, I believe. And in this case, I just happened to show up when the guy who wrote the book was looking for information. So it is a autographed edition, courtesy of Eva, who thought about it.
I'm pretty sure it's probably one of the few.
Yeah, I doubt he autographed
I
too
don't know that
many.
he autographed too many. He didn't autograph mine, and I got a bunch of them from him.
So I asked him.
Hey,
He was quite
Idaho.
flattered.
Yes, everything is doing fine. We're comfortable up here. Truck got us up here fine, and we're planning on just kind of hunkering down Thursday, Friday. It's supposed to be like 30 below zero. So I don't even think I want to start the truck at those temperatures unless it's an emergency. Oh, hell, if it's an emergency, by the time it gets warmed up, we'd be dead anyway. So it doesn't matter. So anyhow, so that's the situation. We're doing fine. You can see Eva back there. She's happy, having a good time.
Hi, Idaho.
That was really cool. We enjoyed your visit too. That was pretty
Hi,
awesome.
Lars.
Did you hear what happened on that?
No.
I know Roger. He's a long haul truck driver.
Okay.
Okay, and Christmas I forget why we were talking about something. I think he might have called me. He said that he was actually in Tucson, you know,
Cool.
and I said, come on over, you know. So he had him over for Christmas dinner. Are old cyanide pits dangerous? Not usually from cyanide. Cyanide is unstable in the environment. Once the pH gets below 9, it pretty much degrades pretty rapidly. So if this was, 50 years old, something like that, zero danger from the cyanide. It might have arsenic or lead or
If
other
there was-
things in it.
Well, if there was a lot of clay, it can get sealed in clay and still be active.
That'd be.
You'd smell it though. That's
No,
you should be able to
I've
smell
never
it.
seen. I've been to a lot of cyanide dumps, tailings dumps, but the thing is, if it was that much clay, then it wouldn't leach very well.
Right, it wouldn't have been.
Yeah,
It could.
it'd be awful tough to do.
Very
Oh,
Oh
alarming.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's much tougher to drive a big rig than the Bago. The Bago handles snow just fine. Forrest says I should ask someone for Montana Smart Pills for my memory. I don't think so.
Forrest, if there were a pill that could fix his memory, I would have already given it to him.
Idaho, we had a great time too. It was nice.
Besides, as long as he don't have a memory, he needs to keep me around.
Are they normally white? They could be. If it was a quartz ore, then yeah, they would normally be white. That in itself wouldn't be a big deal. It would be whatever the original rock was. Oh dear. There was a big pile up on I-90 today by Billings. 3 semis, 2 pickups, 1 caught fire.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. Wow, I hope nobody died.
Yeah. I think Zioxio is studying to be Chris. he just is
Well, that's good.
information
Well,
omnivore.
that's, if you enjoy learning about it, that's half the fun.
Oh yeah.
Because you're more apt to really catch on to things that other people would overlook.
Yep.
You know,
I think it's cool.
And to do a job that you love to do isn't really a job.
I guess I was looking, it looks really dark.
Yeah. Not everybody gets that lucky, but some of us that do what we love to do and love to continually learn, it's a lot of fun.
Well, how did you become a
I'm not sure if you can
Well-
find that book on Amazon.
No, you can go online to the Bureau of Mines though and buy it.
Yeah.
Right, through the Bureau.
Yeah, you go to the Montana Bureau of
Montana.
Mines directly and they'll sell it to you.
I originally became a placer miner I was in the excavating and gravel business.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, Forrest.
And I decided I wanted to go hunt minerals. And gold, it was starting to come up in value at that time, just a little. It was still, I don't know, $800 an ounce or something. And it's like, well, so I went and talked to people who did it. And that's where I started my education and spent about a year learning about what could be done and what opportunity existed out there that, how do you go about starting? And I did it. So I never was a hobby gold guy. I never was just sitting in cricks panning or doing any of that. I actually went from, gravel excavating and stuff to moving my equipment into actually gold mining. So I started different than a lot of people would start just because I didn't start it as a hobby. I started it as I wanted to come out here and make money.
Okay.
what was your most valuable resource?
Chris.
Okay, let's see.
Thrown out reading.
Okay, I'll get it in, Terry. There, I'm trying to read some stuff here. Who's your guest tonight? This is Miner Jim,
Miner Jim.
and he's a local Montana placer gold miner professional. He's run basically wash plants, kind of like you see on Gold Rush, but not as big. And so that's what he's doing here. Good night, Lincoln. Thank you for coming.
Night, Lincoln.
For gold yesterday. I got her looking for gold yesterday. It was a minor injury. Yeah.
That happens.
Oh, Chris Georgie. Xeroxio.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris. I got my high school evacuated and the metal shop flooded while casting aluminum. Sweet. Another good source of information on hard rock gold deposits is, I think it's Ore Deposits 101.
Yeah.
On YouTube.
And I'll tell you another guy that I like to watch, and they're prospecting just like any of us would do. And he has some geology experience, but is Justin on 911 Mining. They're up in British Columbia, but they just go out on these prospecting trips and some of them are their claims that they've staked, but they go out and really kind of go through what they're looking for. It's really interesting sometimes. I mean, he does a lot of short videos that are like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So that makes it even more fun to watch. Another guy that I put a shout out to has been Andy Thrax, THRAXX Mining out of Canada also. Andy does a really good job with his claims as far as showing his test holes, how he's testing when he's doing, using a high banker in a test hole. I really, really appreciate the work he does has on video. And him and another guy, I think his name is Mechanical Miner, and they work together a lot. And they really represent mining very well, and they show their reclamation and some of the things they're doing.
Okay, I just typed in the information on that book. So anyone that needs it, you can always look it up there. I'm not sure where we are on the stream here. Thank you, Robert, for the happy birthday. Yeah, one of the problems with educational videos is getting the right balance of terminology, because certain things you have to be technical, but you also have to kind of explain it to people who don't know it.
If you can find the right person as a teacher that you can understand, because if it gets too technical, you kind of get lost in the technicality and you don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make it a learning experience. It makes it boring.
Well, and confusing.
And confusing, yes.
I mean,
ideally you want to find somebody that you're learning something from. And then if you do a little reading, you understand what they're saying, and you're learning, your level of things you've learned, your expertise kind of keeps picking up. You get better at that. Yeah, Chris, you're right. I mean, some of the jargon and some of the explanations you hear or see kind of contradicts something else somewhere else, and it doesn't help you learn. You definitely need to do enough reading or enough asking questions, and that's something I always tell people. No matter what the subject is or what's going on, continually ask yourself why. Or people around you, why do you think like that? Why do you think that's the answer? Why do you think you're right? And every time it's surprising how many times that, those people will even change their opinion when they start to question why.
I'm not sure, Idaho. I don't think I've ever seen any from DRC Cooper.
I don't
Yeah,
think
look at how
I've
fast
seen
they're
that one
moving
either.
there. Dan Hurd has some good videos out there.
Yeah, he does too. And he's a school teacher, so he's actually really good at, showing you what and why.
Well, yeah, Chris, I agree, but that's also why a lot of times I'll say I think it's, but I'm not sure.
And that's a better answer than a wrong answer or a misleading answer.
Yeah.
Is, well, let's go check that out. Why is that why is that the answer?
Yeah, Zioxio, that's a good point. You're hearing about mineralized veins and stuff. What they really mean is metallic mineralization, and that's what they mean when they say this is mineralized. It means that there's been sufficient alteration and injection of metallic minerals or something of value. You're right. Every rock is mineralized in a way.
Rocks are mineral.
Well, even you hear the term it's a skarn deposit. Well,
Yeah,
okay,
what's that?
what's a skarn deposit? You'll have a mineralized area that's, somewhat visual, but really a skarn deposit is skarn minerals in the deposit.
Yeah.
So if you can identify the skarn minerals, okay, it's a skarn event. And that's misleading when you read some information because it's a skarn. Well, okay, define that.
Yeah, well, and that's too. I try. There's times where I've actually put text on the screen when I say, it's a stope and then put it on there, because I try, and it's hard to do, to remember that people who are watching my videos don't necessarily know all the
word,
terminology.
Right? They don't know that word. What's that word mean?
Yeah. Let's see. Another thing, this was funny, was my where does gold come from? Well, there's three things actually. Number one, probably the most, contrary thing that in frequency is, no, gold actually comes from supernovas.
Yeah, it fell to the earth. Yeah.
No. See, this is the thing. Theoretically, the gold atoms were made there, but then they found out that there's very little gold made in supernova explosions. Almost all the gold is made in neutron star mergers. So, ha!
Right. But,
and then you have the people who are like, the evangelical Christian types that believe in a 6,000-year-old Earth. And it's like, look, God could have made it 6,000 years ago to look old, because God could theoretically do anything.
Could.
But I don't know why he would have antiqued it. But okay, if he antiqued it, then go with it.
Maybe one day to him might be a little bit different to us. I don't know.
Yeah. So, well, they were talking, what was it? Type 1A, I believe, type 1B. But they were talking about, core collapse supernovas, not neutron star mergers. But anyhow, I say it'd be one thing if they just did it kind of, but someone's like, "Yo, you're wrong," blah blah blah. It's like, we really got kind of in my face, and I'm like, "Oh, well, actually."
Well, that's like calling oil a fossil fuel. I mean, it isn't. The Earth somehow is creating oil.
It seems to be.
Yeah, there's oil fields that they, will go in and refrac or clean them up and then go back to pumping oil. And it's like, well, the Earth somehow is creating that oil. It's not just a decayed mass of dinosaurs and, vegetation somewhere. Definitely there's oil in coal, but there's another process there that's, to explain.
Okay, well, now we got some confusion going, so I'm going to clarify. Okay. before the Earth coalesced from the nebula, the atoms in the nebula had to be formed somewhere. Gold is a very large nucleus. It doesn't form in the burning processes in stars. The heaviest thing you get there is iron. So you have to have another process to make things like gold, uranium, and all this other stuff. And yes, some is made in a supernova, which is when an old star burns out and then it can no longer sustain the energy to keep it apart like that and turns into a white dwarf or a neutron star. But when you have two neutron stars, if you had a binary pair of stars and they both did a core collapse supernova, and then eventually they spiral into each other, when they hit, that's what forms the gold atoms. Now, they get spewed out in space. The solar nebula that created the sun condensed from all that crap. And so basically all this, galactic pollution from all these explosions condenses, you get the sun, the planets, and stuff like that. That's where the atoms came from. It's not like gold rains down on the Earth from meteorites or anything, although there's probably some. I have no idea what you're talking about. Are you talking about meteorites?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
Good night, Earl. And so,
You have failed me. That's all right.
again, so anyhow, so that's where the atoms of gold were originally made in space. If we spawn to another platform, I'll probably retitle the equivalent video is see now, look at this.
A lot of clarity.
Chris, neutron degeneracy is necessary to kick nuclei up to sufficiently high number to decay heavy elements. See?
Yeah.
He knows the physics. I can Google, Okay. So how do they become to be alluvial deposits? Okay. The gold condensed along with all the other stuff out of the solar nebula. You get the crust of the Earth. It's got gold, and I suspect there's a lot more gold way deep in the Earth, just like the iron core. Gold's pretty dense too. But anyhow,
Your alluvial deposit, though, that was his question.
I know, I'm getting to it.
Okay.
The gold in the crust has to get concentrated to be useful, get particles big enough to deal with. That is done through hydrothermal action and through the cooling of magma. That the last things that comes out is what they call magmatic waters, which tends to be fairly rich in dissolved metallic sulfides and gold and things like that. Those migrate into cracks in the Earth's surface. Changing conditions, most commonly drops in temperature as it gets closer to the Earth's surface, cause the dissolved chemicals to precipitate and fill up the crack with, like scale. And then you now have actual gold particles. If the conditions are right, you get the gold concentrated in a particular area because it precipitates under particular conditions. Then as the mountain wears down, see, it's complicated. As the mountain wears down, these gold particles become free, get washed down the hillside, and tend to get trapped concentrated again, exactly, in riverbeds and things like that. So that's how your alluvial gold deposits are formed. It all starts out with neutron star mergers. Then it gets complicated after that.
So does that mean there could be like meteorites with gold in them?
I'm sure some of them do.
There could be. They have high nickel and high iron. Well, the gold nuggets are formed forest with that, basically, like he says, in that meteoric water, that high density water, which eventually some of that turns to like quartz. You see quartz?
Yep.
Quartz was a plumbing, that was the fluid that came up through those cracks or veins with all of that. And when that cooled, that gold migrated to a place and eventually broke apart. It had to find voids and crevices to fill in that rock or that edge. And sometimes you've got an intense area that gold was a giant pocket in there and literally created nuggets.
Yeah.
And then the mountain, of course, wears away with all the events, glaciers and rain and snow and water.
Knows the Oxio. That's when the diamonds are formed, the evil ones.
I don't like diamonds unless they're colored.
Yeah, basically, it's not the same amount, but gold is present throughout the crust in small quantities. It's a matter of how do you concentrate it,
Right.
and that's what happens at the various processes. It's like, oh, I don't know if you had beach sand; it's got salt in it. But if you take that and then you put water on it, let that water dissolve the salt and wash it away, and then you evaporate the water, now you have concentrated salt. And it's a similar sort of thing. You're leaching the gold out of this giant amount of rock, putting it in solution, and then where that solution hits just the right conditions, the gold precipitates there and not just everywhere. Yes, pyrites and sulfides tend to be associated with gold because they form in similar conditions, especially iron pyrite and quartz are the two minerals that tend to drop out of solution at the same temperature as gold. Other things can precipitate it too, but a simple temperature drop, you'll get quartz, iron, pyrite, and gold at the same time if they're all in the same solution.
Yeah, it could be a pH change in a lot of cases too.
Yes.
You know, it's temperature, pressure, the pH change in the water or the solution.
Carbon.
Yeah, carbon. You know, there's certain level of iron, and the iron comes out. I mean, occasionally you'll find gold near where you find iron ore, like in Minnesota. You know, in a VMS type deposit. You had to have some changes there that created the environment for it to even happen. You know, it had to be in the solution somewhere, but in order for it to basically get blocked up and stopped somewhere, the environmental change had to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why the deposits vary so enormously. It depends on what was in the solution to begin with, what environmental change caused things to precipitate. Temperature gradient is very common. Pressure gradient is very common.
Yep.
And if you have a lot of different things in solution, which is also common, as these temperature and pressure changes occur, you get a series of things dropping out. So they can sit there and at Butte, no, I think that was more just secondary enrichment. But you can actually have copper here, silver here, then gold over here.
You can.
Because that's how it was deposited.
Yeah, you can have a mountain, if you were actually to dissect the mountain, literally have a giant area that's copper and copper silver and maybe copper gold, and then you'll have an area that's just gold or just silver.
Yeah, the black smokers, sudden temperature change, exactly.
Well, and you can think of the pulsation of that mineralized water, that meteoric water coming up, just like watching a geyser. Every 15 minutes that goes off. Those pulsations of minerals and basically what turned into quartz could have happened over thousands of years of being pumped up and stopped wherever the blockages were. And eventually it becomes, you know, an ore body. It didn't necessarily happen in one big event. It could have been multiple pulsed events.
Yep. And a lot of places where you see hot springs today, there could be ore bodies forming underneath them.
Or somewhere very right next to them.
Yep. Oh. Little one, Aries said, I'm starting to think Wikipedia is actually Chris Georgie. Good, Forrest. He says several counties down here in Nevada are going back to business, ignoring the state mandates.
That's good.
So
We were lucky here. We were a little bit freer here from most of it.
Yeah.
I've been accidentally forgetting my mask.
yeah.
Carmelite eruption.
Okay, Chris, I'm going to ask you a question. How's the magma chamber at Mammoth right now in the Long Valley caldera? Is it stable? Is it moving again? It was moving for a little bit, getting shallower, but I don't know what happened. So it was actually only about 6 kilometers deep.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's. Oh, I'm sure the mineralization in Yellowstone National Park would be a blast to go hunt around in.
Zioxio says Russia has some cool deposits where magma intruded some, and the sulfur separated out and then sucked out the gold from the magma. Nature's weird.
Yeah, it is just has to be the right environmental issues that happen, and you've got something.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, Mr. Lodak, I'm getting pretty tired too here. I've probably got a hugely busy birthday tomorrow. I'm sure thousands of people will show up and give me a surprise party. That would be a surprise.
Well, we'll go to Walmart and we'll buy you a special treat. Well, we still have to go to Walmart. Since it's your birthday and you're doing it Hobbit style and giving other people presents, we need to buy me soda.
Is that how it works?
Yep, that's how it works.
I'm not sure what the causality is in that, but what the hell? So, anyhow, I want to thank Jim for showing up
Well,
again, and
Thanks for the questions and everybody also being here. And I want to thank Keith and Eva for putting up with me again one more time.
Oh, absolutely.
Forrest says they sell Geritol at Walmart.
They sell Depends too, Forrest.
Yep. Anyhow, so good chance Jim will be back next week. Depends on if he's busy or whatever.
Whatever's, that's up to you. It's your
I think
show.
the permitting and operation would be the next thing.
So we could do that.
Yeah.
I'll work on that throughout the week if I get the chance here.
Yeah. So anyhow, Chris says thanks for visiting, Jim.
Yeah. No, thanks, guys.
You're welcome, Minor 49er.
And Chris, we'll get a hold of you.
Lodak.
So,
Mr. Lodak says thank you, Jim. Benjamin says
yeah.
thank you, Benjamin. Thanks, everybody.
Minor Jim is getting famous.
Yeah, no.
Will become a public figure.
No, but if if I can help somebody, that's cool.
Well, Terry, she doesn't abuse me. He says, Keith, remember, if a man isn't abused by a woman, he'll just not feel like a man. Now, the funny thing is, there's a misspelling here. He forgot the apostrophe, so it goes, if a man isn't abused by a woman, hell just not feel like a man. So, I'm confused.
Not abusing him.
Let's see. Okay, hope to see you on the 18th too, probably. Thanks, everybody. People, Chris says, take care, Eva.
Take care, Chris. Good night, everybody.
Zoxia wants you to be president. It would be an improvement, but I don't think I'd wish that on you.
Who, me? I'd make a crappy president. I need to be dictator.
Yeah.
Yeah, Goldstream, I agree. Placer is appealing because anyone can do it. Yeah, it's a lot simpler than, and the equipment's a lot simpler. Crushing rock, which is the first thing in hard rock, sucks if you don't have some really expensive equipment. Oh.
Well, placer you can build into too. If you can find gold, you can
Okay.
build it into it.
You see this button right here?
Now,
I'll let you know when to push the button there.
okay.
Good night, everybody.
Go ahead.
Just gotta show off, huh, Barry?
We're probably the only live stream that has a full